Hello, Bigfoot enthusiast. Scott here from Squatch America.
And Hannah, domestic goddess, chief cook, and doggy mama here in the paddy wagon. And check out my new Bigfoot blingy earrings. Ladies, what do you think of them? Should I carry those? Should we sell those as merch? Let me know.
All right. And Galen, first one in the chat. Thank you, sir.
You win nothing.
Yes. But I'm sorry to hear that you got so much snow in Baker.
I heard it's a snowpocalypse.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yep, sorry to hear
we're
that.
in Arizona right now, so.
And it was 18 degrees last night, so we're not
cold.
too far behind. Hi, Lori and Scott, Janice, Brian and Chewy, and Renee, Joe, Michelle, Raptor, and Scott from Maine.
All right, so we got a great show tonight. We're going to jump into it really quick tonight because we got a lot of information.
And Dawn.
Yeah, we got a lot of information coming at you. So let's play that intro.
So what do you think about our new intro there, folks? I want to know.
And hi, Brian.
What's up, Scott? What's up, Hannah? I love the new intro. I think that's really, really cute. That's awesome.
It is cute.
Yeah, we just finished our Christmas one, so we had a new one for this year.
Very cool.
Let's get this party started,
let's get
gentlemen.
This party started. So we're talking with
Brian King Sharp
from Sasquatch Odyssey.
Woohoo!
Actually, its logo's in his background, so I didn't have to do that. But
no, I like the big one. It's nice.
Yeah.
You're a creature of routine.
Yeah. So we're going to start with the basic question everyone gets asked. I get asked, you get asked, you ask, what got you into Bigfoot?
Oh, God, that's a really long story. So I'll give you the short version.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, it was really about growing up in the North Georgia mountains and hearing stories of Bigfoot. Well, what I know now to be Bigfoot and Sasquatch, but back then in the nomenclature, it was hairy men, wild men, mountain men. Mm-hmm. And I heard those stories growing up as a kid, and I was always fascinated with cryptids. I was fascinated with the Loch Ness Monster. That's what I fell in love with as a child. Mm-hmm. And hearing those stories, I fell in love with Bigfoot. So that's sort of the simple answer that got me into it. And of course, everything that came on television that was Bigfoot of the day. I'm a kid of the 70s. I was raised, came up in the 80s. So anything that was Bigfoot related on television, I devoured, as many books as I could possibly get on the subject. And then I had a situation, an encounter, experience when I was 12 that I really think sort of pushed me over the edge that I think could be Sasquatch related. So that's really what solidified it for me, was my own experience that, looking back now in retrospect, may or may not have had something to do with Sasquatch.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. And that was in North Georgia.
Yes. I was born in the Rome area, Somerville, that kind of area. Anybody who's familiar with that, it's sort of the northwestern part of Georgia over near the border with Alabama. But tons of mountains in that area. Lookout Mountain, people will be familiar with that. Just foothills and a bunch of Sasquatch and ginseng hunters apparently in that area.
Yeah, exactly. I actually had the privilege of living in Columbus, Georgia for 4 years when I was in the Army at Fort Benning.
I know where Columbus is. I know it well.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't miss the summers there at all. Not a bit.
Yeah, Georgia summers are rough. The Carolinas here in the foothills are a little different. We get a little drier heat. It's a decent
dry heat.
Yeah, it's a dry heat.
Makes all the difference in the world. If it's wet, it's no good, but
yeah,
it's okay.
Exactly.
Like a dry cold is not nearly as horrible as a wet cold.
Yeah,
it's true.
I'm picking up what you're putting down, Hannah.
So, what?
I don't know what's next. All right, thank you very much.
You said so like you were going to say something so profound, Hannah. Scott and I were just waiting on to see what you were going to drop.
Yeah,
Dry
Like a
cold is
knowledge
much more tolerable than wet cold. That's all it is. So if I'm going to be cold, I'd rather be cold in Arizona than in Oregon. Okay, there we go.
yeah, exactly.
And now I am cold in Arizona. So there we are. So everything's good. All right.
Yeah.
Hey, Lockbeard and Charles popped on. We've got Mark in from Cloudcroft and our new friend Shelly.
Yeah. Cool. So you've got to interview a lot of people on your show. How long has that been going on? How long is tell us about Sasquatch Odyssey?
I started the show. I posted the first episode in February of 2021. Had no idea what I was doing. Of course, like most podcasters who get into podcasting, you just start doing it, right? Sometimes the best thing to do is just do something. So that's exactly what I did. I wanted to document as many encounter stories as I possibly could from the southeastern United States, because you talk to a lot of people and they believe that there might have been one Sasquatch and it might have been Patty back in the late 60s and she lived only in California. But I grew up with those stories, like I said, in Northwest Georgia. So I wanted to talk to as many people as I could who had those kind of experiences. Funny thing, I've talked about growing up in there, and I used to reference one story in particular of a ginseng hunter that I had heard growing up, word of mouth through my great-grandfather and my great-grandmother and some other people in that area. And just I think about a year ago, I was doing some digging around on one of the websites that catalogs encounters, and I found this guy's encounter actually documented. I think it was on the BFRO. So I was super excited. It was like 1977 this encounter was from. So I wanted to talk to as many people as I could from the 70s, 80s, 90s up through today, actually. So that's why I started the show, and I started talking to people and getting into Facebook groups and trying to get people on the show. And the first person I ever had on episode 1 was a roadside crossing incident here in my home state now of North Carolina. And it just blossomed from there, man. I just started reaching out to people, and people wanted to share their stories. And I thought, okay, it's great for me to talk to these people. I can have a phone conversation and I can take notes, but what am I going to do with all the information? I'd like to have sort of a repository for other people to reference and say, hey, this guy saw this thing in North Carolina, but I talked to somebody 2 weeks ago that saw the same thing in California, and sort of draw those correlations and parallels between all the encounters. So I said, let me do a podcast. So I started a podcast, started recording it on my iPhone, and it sounded horrible. Of course, it was like really, really bad in the beginning, just horrible audio quality. And I think episode 9 of the show, I think it was episode 9. I'm interviewing Dr. Jeff Meldrum. I had no clue what I was doing. I was super excited. I'd seen Meldrum on all the documentaries, and I just called him up in his office and he answered the phone, and I'm like, hey, I'd like to interview you. So we set it up and he came on. I had Ron Moorhead on in the first, I guess 12 or so episodes, and it just sort of blossomed from there. And of course, anytime you start a podcast, there's nobody listening. You're just basically talking to yourself. You're whistling in the dark. But eventually it started taking off. There was 30 people listening, then it was 300, and then it was 3,000. And I don't know, February of 21, I posted the first episode. In March of 2022, I left my full-time career. At that point, I was in law enforcement for 16 years. But at this point in my life, I was a retail manager. I was running a big super hub for a huge auto parts corporation here in North Carolina. And I left that to podcast full-time in March of 2022. So it's definitely been a whirlwind, man. And I have met so many amazing people like you, Scott and Hannah. You guys have been on the show. I would have never met amazing people like you had it not been for the show. So I say that all the time. I want answers for Bigfoot. I want to explore the subject, but if nothing else ever happens in my life other than being able to host a show and talk to amazing people and make great friends, I'll be happy with my life from now on. So that's kind of where Sasquatch Odyssey started and kind of where it is today.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love that, because that is my favorite part of Squatch America, is all the people that we meet, the random awesome people that cross our paths, like the ones that chase us down when we come into a campground and try to set up, and they chase us down, right, Shelly?
Yeah, she's in the chat. That happened yesterday, and
2 days ago.
and she's in the chat today.
Went from chasing us down to dinner last night. Now she's a Squatch American. I love it. It's just awesome, and
yeah, it's kind of funny. We have the logos all over the truck, and the reason I do that is so people will give me stories,
and so we can write off all our miles on our taxes.
Yeah.
So keep talking.
You can't tell her maiden name's Berkowitz, right? So, but anyway, no, we and we've had so many great stories, from people just seeing our truck. And then I tell one of the funniest stories. We were at a gas station. Where were we? We were at
a Buc-ee's.
No, not
where?
The gas station one.
Oh, it was in Anderson,
South Carolina. We were sitting at a gas station filling up the truck, and I hear this screeching sound out on the street. And I look up, and this guy's locking up his brakes, and he spins a U. He drives back into the gas station, jumps out of his truck, comes running up to me. I've got a story for you. It's like
that's some of my favorite stuff. I've met so many amazing people doing the conferences and getting out and actually meeting people. It is amazing, the people that you meet, and you don't even realize the connections that you make. I mean, we do these shows and you sit behind the microphone and you do your thing and you try your best to connect with people, because I love doing that, as we're talking about now. But you don't realize the connection that you make with a lot of people. I had so many. It was kind of weird. I think it was a couple of years ago, the first time I did the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Conference up in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. I had so many people coming up over the course of the day and telling me, it was like, I don't know. It was at some point it got kind of weird, because it was like 8 or 10 couples, like older couples. They would come up and say, "Oh my God, my husband and I love you. We love the show. You sleep with us every night." And I'm like, what? Hold on. What does that mean? They go to sleep listening to me, right? They're on. Your voice is very soothing. And, my husband will never tell you, but he really loves your voice. And I thought, it's kind of weird, but sort of way,
I feel them, because you know what? I married him and got Art Bell along with that.
Yeah, I used to go sleep listening to Art Bell every night.
There you go.
Yeah,
it's good company, man. I'll take that. I can't chat, folks, so people are saying hi. I'm not ignoring you, Sharon. Hello, how are you?
No, I've got all the chat control here. Saw me.
Hannah is in control, folks.
You have no idea the truth of that.
Well, I've got a good idea.
I'm sure Danny understands fully.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, I think it's time for a commercial.
For our quick commercial break of one of our sponsors.
Hello, Bigfoot enthusiasts. Hannah here from Squatch America, and we want to welcome you to Cloudcroft, New Mexico, where mystery meets adventure. Introducing the Bigfoot Encounter Museum, the ultimate destination for all cryptozoology enthusiasts and adventure seekers. Step into a world shrouded in legend and intrigue, where the mysterious stories of Bigfoot come to life. Our museum is a treasure trove of artifacts, exhibits, and interactive displays that delve into the fascinating history and folklore surrounding this legendary creature. Get ready to embark on an immersive journey through time, exploring the captivating tales of eyewitness accounts, footprint casts, compelling documentaries, and so much more. You'll be amazed as you unravel the mysteries and evidence surrounding this elusive and enigmatic creature. Whether you're a skeptic or a true believer, the Bigfoot Encounter Museum in Cloudcroft, New Mexico promises an unforgettable adventure for all ages. Come and create lasting memories as you immerse yourself in the world of Bigfoot lore. Plan your visit today and uncover the secrets of Bigfoot at the Cloudcroft Bigfoot Encounter Museum. Your journey into the unknown awaits. Cloudcroft Bigfoot Encounter Museum. Discover the legend. Experience the mystery.
Shout out to Mark, who is joining us tonight in the chat from Cloudcroft, New Mexico. So, if y'all have not made your vacation plans to Cloudcroft, now's the time to get started.
Yep.
That commercial makes me want to go to the museum. That's all.
You know what? It is phenomenal. And every time I went through the vortex, I felt like I had accomplished something great. Every time I went through the vortex without throwing up or falling down, even better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I can feel you there. I get motion sickness, so I could do just about anything, but anything that goes around in a circle, I'm screwed. I just can't.
Yeah.
I even did it with no hands once. That was fun.
Yeah.
I'm scared of you.
So, yeah, it's a cool, and a lot of people don't think about New Mexico as being a Bigfoot hotspot.
There's a lot of stuff that happens.
But we just spent like 2 weeks up there in Cloudcroft at the museum, and boy, how many stories did I get? You know, we even got invited on to the Mescalero Apache reservation, and they were showing me stuff that they found, and I'm like, wow, you know. And yeah, you wouldn't think, you go, 30 miles down the road is Alamogordo, and it's like the White Sands Missile Range and desert, but 30 miles up the road, you're at 9,000 feet, and there's forests and pine trees and snow.
Yeah, I've interviewed quite a few people from New Mexico that have had experiences, actually. And I was shocked because you get this picture in your head. It's like Texas. Like I had a lady I interviewed, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks back. I was just editing some of her stuff today to put it out, I think on Friday. And she talks about Texas. And I specifically during the interview, I went back a couple of times and I kept telling her to describe East Texas for people, because I want them to get this picture in their mind. Because like me, I went to Texas when I was a kid, but the area that I went to, it was flat. There wasn't a hill. There wasn't even a speed bump in that area. I don't think that was too, speed bumps were higher elevation to these folks. But I said to her, just paint the picture for people, because I think when you think about places like New Mexico and Texas, and at least for me, you have this picture in your mind that there's no way a Sasquatch could ever be there because there's nowhere for them to hide. It's just sand and whatever. Not true at all.
Yeah. Yeah. You wouldn't believe, the first time we drove up to Cloudcroft, I was driving up there in the mountains, and we got into the trees and stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I grew up in the Blue Mountains of Eastern Oregon, and I can't tell the difference between this and that. As far as the trees, the terrain, it's just identical. And, growing up in the Blue Mountains, that was Bigfoot hotspot too, the Freeman film fame, but Cloudcroft, New Mexico looks exactly the same.
Yes, and they've got a great coffee shop. I want to shout out. I forgot what it's called. They've got a great coffee shop with bear in the name, and they make a killer Mexican mocha. So, and a great pizza place too. Yeah. Just so you got everything. And if you want to go skiing, knock yourself out. I don't do that.
And a Bigfoot museum. That's just a cherry.
It's true. It's true.
A Bigfoot museum with pizza, ice cream, and a shooting gallery.
Yes, a shooting gallery.
Totally.
And more merch than you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, they've knocked themselves out. It is the front entrance with the gift shop and the snack bar alone is an experience.
Yeah.
Much less the Bigfoot encounter.
Yeah.
I'm writing it into my bucket list as we speak.
There you go. Cloudcroft, New Mexico.
Yes. We should have our next official Squatch America meetup there.
We should. Sounds great.
Destination vacation for all the Squatch Americans.
Yeah.
All right. Like start talking about something intelligent.
Okay. Oh, you caught me on a bad day for that. Okay. But so I was going to say, out of all the encounters, and you listen to a lot of stories, as do we. Is there something that triggers you like it does me when people are talking to you, like this guy's real and this guy's just kind of making this up? You ever run into that?
Yeah, I have had that a lot, actually. And
yeah,
I was telling you guys before we went on the air, I just finished my book, Sasquatch Unleashed, The Truth Behind the Legend. That'll be out here hopefully in a couple of months. And that's one of the things I talk about in the book is people who make up their stories, because I think we have to have intellectual honesty in this. I'd love to believe that everybody who ever has a Sasquatch experience and shares it is being 100% honest. I just don't think that's the case. I think there's a lot of factors that go into that. I think some people just make up their stories whole cloth, and I think there are a lot of people who misremember things. You know, memory is fallible. Eyewitnesses are very fallible. There's a whole lot of things that go into that. But just in particular to your question, there's a couple of things that stick out to me, and this is something that's come up a lot recently. Actually, I had some people texting me today about the show that I just put out that came out on Sasquatch Odyssey this morning. It was a very short encounter story. It happened to this girl when she was about 10 or 11 years old. Her and her friend were inside their house on a reservation. She's First Nations Shuswap from up in BC, Canada. And she's having this situation where they're outside, they hear some weird noises, they come inside, and her friend looks outside, she sees what she believes is a Sasquatch. There's this whole thing, and then the next day it culminates with this huge piece of cow flesh that looked like, to her description, had been bitten out of the side of a cow, smeared on the front of her door and left on the doorstep. Just really weird. I'd never heard anything like that. And you know, it was a really quick encounter. She's 28 years old now. And I had people reaching out to me today and saying, I really connected with her story. She seemed really down to earth, and there wasn't a whole lot of put on there. She just laid it out. This is what happened. This is what we were doing. This is how I felt. It was really weird. And that was just kind of the end of it. So that's one of the things. It seems to me the more simple the story is, in a lot of cases, it just seems to be more credible when it comes to the witness. Now, when you get into some of the fabrications and some of the embellishments, I think, for lack of a better term, it sort of goes off the rails for me. And then, of course, there's just there's a lot of stories that take left turns that you don't expect. I've had that happen a couple of times where I was hunting and I had this encounter while I was in my tree stand. And then the next thing, you're talking about portals and teleportation and some of the other wilder, high strangeness sort of stuff. And again, I tread lightly there because I don't know, right? I don't think we don't know a whole lot about these things. So I never say anything too out there is too hard to believe, because who knows? I think Hannah, you actually said it to me. I don't know if we said it on the air or after we had finished the interview when you guys were on. You said something along the lines of, the weird stuff that we don't understand is science of tomorrow, right? Once you figure it out and you get into the science of whatever that experience might be, it could have a scientific explanation. We just don't know today that we might know 10 days from now or 2 years from now. So, but that was a really long answer to a short question. There's a lot of things that go into me sort of wading through that with people when they're telling their stories. Again, I have a law enforcement background as a cop for 16 years. Interrogation comes into it. And that's one of those things that I've talked about this recently. I was on a show just a couple of nights ago with, over on Squatch DTV with Steve Coles, and Steve is sort of investigative. He's a private investigator. We get into the, he kind of law enforcement synchronicities kind of thing. And I told him, when I started the show, I have to be very careful because I don't want people to come on my show and feel like they're going to be interrogated. That is not what my show is at all. If you've listened to any of the 400 and plus episodes that I've put out, you know that right away. But a lot of people hear, okay, ex-cop, he's interviewing people about Bigfoot. He's trying to figure out what you're lying about. That is not my show at all. So I have to be very careful of that. I don't want to interview a person and make them feel like they're being interrogated. So, but of course, there's always that, and a little bit of that in the back of my mind. I'm watching body language. I'm watching their eyes. I'm seeing how they're telling the story, that kind of thing. There's always little tales when sometimes there's tales when people are making up or embellishing a story or what have you. So, but it's a fine line.
Yeah, the tricky ones are where they are making something up, but they believe it, and so it's like oh yeah,
yeah, and I think that's where Hannah comes in our thing. Being a clinical psychologist, and she worked in child welfare for a long time, so she had to interview kids and
lot of
parents and
people
stuff
who
like
would
that.
go to their graves swearing that they were the best parents in the world, and they believed it. Yeah, no. No, I hate to break the truth to you, sweetheart, but no. Anyway.
Yeah,
And that's a very good comparison, because that happens in a lot of cases with
Yes.
people who believe they've had an encounter with Sasquatch, believe that they've seen one. They believe it wholeheartedly, and it's very difficult to wade through and pick through the wheat and the chaff because they believe it so wholeheartedly. And then there's other people that have mental health issues and other things on board, and it's very difficult to wade through that because everything that they're talking about really happened between their two ears, and they are 100% convinced that it's real because it is to them. Again, it's very difficult to wade through that, and you have to do it.
And of course, their body responses follow their beliefs.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, it's kind of funny. I used to have my Squatching partner up in Oregon, who was a deputy sheriff, so he had went through all the interrogation training and all that stuff too. But he doesn't go out with me anymore because he read Missing 411, and he's like, I'm not going in the woods anymore.
David Paulides.
Yeah.
All right. So before we go into our next, this is, by the way, folks, and you'll see it in another commercial. This is going to be a shorter show tonight. But before we go to our next commercial, Ben from Northwest Sasquatch Studies and Research has a great question. Okay. What are some things to look for in an interview with a witness with a Sasquatch report? What do you look for?
Well, that's a broad question. There's a lot of things to look for. Again, I look for simplicity, right? I look for genuine reactions because I've been in very high stress situations. When you get shot at, you get really stressful really quick. And I know how I respond. I've seen how other people respond. So you look for how a person's telling a story, and if they're conveying that they were really stressed out, they were scared for their lives, but maybe what they're telling you or saying doesn't necessarily line up. That's a big red flag for me. And then again, like I said, just simplicity. Does it seem like they're making up their story? I mean, everybody in the world has a BS meter. Some are better than others, right? Yeah. And if you listen to your BS meter, it'll usually tell you, and it's sort of that gut feeling that will never lead you astray. If you're listening to your gut feeling, then you'll pick up on whether somebody's telling you the truth or not. Sometimes it's harder than others, like I said, but those are things that I look for when people are giving me a report of particularly a situation where they saw one of these things. You know, you ask same questions over and over. Sometimes I'll ask the question in the beginning of when they start talking, and I'll let them talk for 20 minutes, and then I'll rephrase the question and ask them again about a specific thing and just see if they give you the same answer and there's continuity in the story. That's a huge thing as well. And I'll be honest with you, I'm one of those people that have a hard time remembering what they had for breakfast. So if you ask me, and I've said this before, you know, I had experiences when I was 12, and I tell that story on podcast, and I've told it on my show before. Am I getting all the details right? Probably not. I'm 49 years old. That was a long time ago. I remember what I remember, the way that I remember it. And I'm sure after hearing 400 or 500, 600, Bigfoot stories, have I taken some pieces of those and somehow inflated them and put them into my story? I don't think so, but maybe I have. And I think that's what happens with a lot of people. Again, we're very exposed to Bigfoot. It's everywhere in pop culture. That's one of the other things I talk about in the book, is the popularity in pop culture and how that popularity and Bigfoot and Sasquatch really being a household word at this point. How does that influence people who may have an experience, and how do they draw from some of the other experiences that they've heard on shows like yours or podcasts like mine? How does that affect people's stories over the years? There's a lot of nuances to taking people's reports and listening to their encounters, for sure.
Yeah. And, as we assimilate knowledge and, as we assimilate things, they become part of who we are. And so, Yeah. I know sometimes other people's stories all of a sudden weave their way into our own stories. It's like, wait a minute, that actually didn't happen to us. It's so, but, we use the collective we as in the entire Bigfoot community.
You are the collective. But yeah, it's very true. And you don't mean to do that. And I think the majority of people, it's not a nefarious thing. I think it's a subconscious thing that just weaves its way into the fabric of the story in some cases.
And that is how culture is created. That's how society is created. So do you want to go to our next?
Sure.
Because we're running out of time
Oh
here.
my gosh. Which one?
We just played that one.
Okay.
As we travel and search for Bigfoot, we use a lot of equipment that uses the internet to operate. Also, in our town hall meetings and live streams, we need a reliable connection. We use Nomad Internet. There's a link and discount code below, so join us and have internet access on the go.
All right. So let's talk about the book. Where did that come from?
It's been a long time coming, man. I have been talking about and thinking about writing a book for years. And it was so difficult for me because the project for me in my brain started out being a deal in encounters, right? I wanted to document encounters, and there's a lot of people who don't listen to podcasts that read books. And I thought, I really want people to get these stories. So I really thought it was going to be that sort of a project. I thought I was going to write about all the encounters, and that may still happen. I don't know. I'm already kind of talking. I think I talked to you guys after I had you on the show, and we were just talking backstage about what I thought or envisioned the second book to be. But the first one turned into something completely different. So it started off with, I talk a little bit about my history, my story growing up, talk about all kinds of things. I think there's 15 chapters total in the book. So it's a little bit of everything, really. I address hoaxers. That's one of the things that I don't do a ton on Sasquatch Odyssey, but I host 4 podcasts. So on that Bigfoot podcast, which is another one of my shows that Wayne, my co-host, and I do, we do talk a lot about hoaxers because I think that's really important for us to talk about. Again, if we are to have intellectual honesty about what we do in our community, there are people out there who are trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. And I think it's very important that we address that in a way that lets people know it's happening. And so I go into that in the book. I talk about some of the known hoaxes. I don't really like to call a bunch of people out by name, but the ones, the Rick Dyers and the people that have no problem being called a hoaxer, I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the book. So we do that. I get into the psychology of the hoaxes because I really think it's important to understand why people do things to then understand how to stop them. So it's kind of one of those crime fighting techniques, you try to employ as a cop. You try to figure out why people are committing crimes. And maybe if you remove that from the equation, you won't have as many people committing crimes, kind of the broken window theory, kind of the same thing, how I approach it with Bigfoot. But like I said, there's a ton in the book. I talk about my radium experience. I went up and did a week-long expedition in Radium, BC with Todd Standing back in October of last year. I talk about those experiences there. I talk a lot about Todd. I mean, that's one of those things. He's sort of part of the world. I know people have very strong opinions about Todd. I certainly have strong opinions about him as well. So I get into that in the book. I do a little bit of interview stuff. I have some stuff about my Les Stroud interview in there, some of the things that I pulled out of that, some of the Todd stuff. And I go into pop culture, Bigfoot and pop culture. There's a ton of stuff in the book. Hopefully the book will be out. Like I said, we literally just did the final edits yesterday. So we're finalizing the book cover now. So hopefully it'll go to print, and we'll probably start the pre-sale here, hopefully in a couple of weeks, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. I was really excited to write the book. It was a labor of love, but it was a fun process. And I had a lot of help from a lot of people that gave me feedback, and it was a cool process, and I'm very excited about it. So,
well, we can't wait for it to come out. Are you releasing it on Kindle as well as book?
That's a good question. I know there is an ebook, so I'm assuming it will be on Kindle. And
excellent, because that's how I roll.
Yeah, because we don't have room for books.
Oh, we have room. We've got so many books in here, it's ridiculous. It's like, but we gotta eliminate the weight in here. And
my mother-in-law's in town, and we live in a 400 square foot tiny house. And she was sitting outside my studio today, and she was looking at all the books. I built like 8 bookshelves in the tiny little area that we could build it in, and it's chock block full of books. And she's like, I don't even know how these are holding up to all this weight. And I'm like, yeah, we're a book family around here. We like physical books. So
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
cool.
ebooks are cool too.
Well, yeah, my Kindle has got thousands in them, and I keep wondering if there is a limit.
Yeah.
Because and here's the thing. Kindle is dangerous because I could just be, oh yeah, hey, that's only $8.99. Click. Oh, that's only $6.99. Click. That's only $14.99. Click. Whereas if I was in the bookstore, it's like that's $29.99. Yeah, I don't think so.
Right. You'd be up at the counter and they'd ring you up and you'd say, I'm putting those 4 back. I just want this one.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's
Kindle,
true.
it's too late. It's too late.
Yeah.
No, but I have absolutely, there's no hope of me ever dying because I got to get to the bottom of my book list before I die. Anyway, I want to just echo, please like, subscribe, do all those things. Do not accidentally unsubscribe. That sometimes happens. So if you're not subscribed, push subscribe, click the notification bell, and like this video.
Yeah. Cool.
Michael Freeman's in the house in the chat. What's up, Mike?
And he's giving you hell, buddy.
Yeah.
Is he? Oh,
Yes.
I gotta get caught up here. I was reading Blue Eyed Northern. She said she loves her some Brian. I love you too. I appreciate it.
There we go. This is what Michael's.
These people. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Mike keeps me honest. He's a good
Yeah. Yeah, he's good people.
Okay, so hey, you've got about 10 good minutes of interviewing left.
Okay,
So
cool.
don't waste it by going, what do we talk about now?
Yeah. What are we talking about now?
Well, let me address Janice. She asked when Sasquatch Odyssey is on. Sasquatch Odyssey there's a YouTube channel, so you can check it out on YouTube. It's not up to date. There's only about 120 or so interview videos over there, but Sasquatch Odyssey is a primarily audio-based podcast. So anywhere you get podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, anywhere you can find a podcast audio form, it's there. And I'm doing 3 shows a week. So there's no shortage of Sasquatch Odyssey. I think I just posted episode 415 or something today. So there's plenty of back catalog to go check out. I'd love you to find it wherever you listen to podcasts and hit that follow button so you get all the new shows when they drop.
Yes, and speaking of that, folks, open your daggone emails because guess what I shared in yesterday's email? I shared all of Sasquatch Odyssey's links so you can find him everywhere. I have a question about your podcast, sir, though. On the December 15th podcast where we were featured, it says that we were explicit. What the heck?
It was an explicit podcast.
Did I say something I shouldn't have?
I sometimes click that because I am bad about dropping the F-bomb on occasion.
Okay.
I feel all right. So
That
I
might
know
have been
you-
more me. It was me, not you, Hannah. It was
well,
me.
I have been known to do so.
She's weirdly enough, she's the potty mouth in our
Well,
family.
you know, he did mention I worked for child welfare.
Yeah.
My mom did that for many years, so I
It
said
ruined her too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
yes. But yeah, I think that sometimes, like I said, there's a thing in Spreaker who hosts the podcast. Sometimes I can just check that and it'll say explicit across the board just to cover the bases. Because we try not to do that, especially on Sasquatch Odyssey. It's more of a family-based show. There's plenty of listeners who tell me they listen with their kids, and it's very rare that somebody drops an F-bomb or says any curse words on Sasquatch Odyssey. That Bigfoot podcast is a little bit more adult themed. So there's, we get into some adult conversations, and I get a little heated sometimes, and Wayne gets a little heated sometimes when we're talking about people posting hoaxed stuff and that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit more adult themed, but I don't know. I'll have to go back and look at that because I don't remember we said anything really bad. I don't know.
That's okay. Yeah. No, it's really interesting. But when you were talking about hoax stuff, there's something popped into my head. How often, now this happens to me all the time. I have got, there was a certain picture of a Bigfoot that I got sent to me 5 years ago, and about every year it comes around and somebody else has got a different story with the same photograph.
Isn't it the craziest thing in the world? It's like, but we as humans, we know we have short memories. We have the news cycle in our brains gets shorter and shorter every year, I think. So I think hoaxers take advantage of that. I think they know that. And if here's the thing about hoaxing. Sometimes all it takes is that one hoax and you get a couple of million clicks or something. You can make a quick couple of $1,000 on whatever depending on where you're posting that. So I think that happens a lot. I think people they say, oh, well, people have probably forgotten this. And how many times do you see those pictures? And I see hundreds of people, sometimes thousands, commenting, oh my God, great catch. That's an amazing photo. Where did you get that? And I'm like, that's freaking 10 years old, and it's been proven a hoax 4,700 times. Like, what are people doing? But that's the nature of the beast, unfortunately.
So here's the thing. I'll bet we'll see it about every 3 years. The Bigfoot from the Durango, Colorado train ride.
It'll be one. It'll ride out in history. It'll repeat its news cycle probably sometime in 2024. Around summertime, people will be posting it again, and it's like it never happened. It's the first time anybody's ever seen it. It's wild. Have you guys seen? Not that this is hoaxed. Wayne and I did an episode of That Bigfoot Podcast, I think last week, and it just popped up on my radar. I think Wayne is the one who found it. Long story short, there's a couple of, I think Bob Gimlin, the podcaster on YouTube, not Patty.
Right. Yeah, I know who Bob Gimlin is. Yeah.
So Bob Gimlin, and I think the channel that we ended up really pulling from and really watching the video from was called Jailbreak. Oh God, it'll come. It's Jailbreak Overlander. He's like he travels in his Jeep and he posts really cool pictures of his travels. It's a really cool channel. But he did a video on, it's a 2015 video from Les Stroud, Survivor Man Les Stroud, and he's over, I can't even remember what country it's in. I think he inadvertently filmed a Sasquatch and didn't know it. Like this picture behind her, there's a still of it.
Yeah,
it looks like a Sasquatch. Have you guys seen that?
I've seen that. Yeah.
What is your opinion on that? I've stunned.
Yeah. Inconclusive.
Interesting, but not conclusive. Yeah.
Okay, I'm right there with you. It just really intrigued me because I'll be honest, when I first saw the still and then I really got into the video, I even told Wayne, I think it's the first time I've seen something in a long time that really made me pause and go, that looks like a Sasquatch.
Yeah.
It really does. So I don't know. It
really does. Yeah.
Okay, we have another question for whoever wants to field this one. This is from our new Squatch American Shelley. What is your best advice for someone who likes to day hike and look for signs and prints, like super novice but enthusiast?
I'll be brief. I'll just tell you, always look at everything. It's very difficult. And I know that's funny, but it's really the truth. That's what I do when I hike my property. That's how I found everything that I found footprint wise. I found footprints on what looked like footprints on my neighbor's property about half a mile away. Is I'm always looking down. I'm always looking around because it's not like the movies, folks. And I know Scott, you and Hannah both can attest to this. They don't necessarily scream Sasquatch print. I mean, you really have to look for these things, especially depending on the substrate that you're talking about. If it's hard pack and those kind of things, you're just probably SOL. You're not going to find anything. But even in the mud, sometimes it can be a little bit ambiguous. You have to really pay attention. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason. I'm certainly not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. I found things that I wasn't convinced were footprints. I had to have Cliff Barrickman tell me that it was a footprint of a Sasquatch that I had taken a picture of that I found, because I was second guessing myself. I said, this is I called it footprint pareidolia. I was like, oh, that's really cool. It looks like a footprint. I'm going to take a picture of that. Right. And Cliff's like, I showed it to Cliff. I handed him my phone. He's like, dude, that's a Sasquatch footprint. Did you cast it? And I'm like, no, I didn't cast it. It was footprint pareidolia. So
yeah,
always question yourself, but always, if you're into it at all and you think you might cast something, carry material with you. And always take lots of photos and video, because sometimes the cast will turn out crappy and the picture or video may look great, or vice versa. Rarely do they both turn out the same, but do as much due diligence and always put something in the picture for scale.
Yeah, exactly. One of my favorite things from a lot of people use walking sticks. Go to Amazon, buy a measuring tape that sticks to stuff, stick it on your walking stick. Best advice I ever got. Bigfooting.
Very good advice.
Yeah.
So we are
and cast everything. You can sort it out later. Yeah, that was the other one.
So we might want to play the last commercial because we have got to say goodbye in about 3 minutes to prepare for, would you push the button already? To prepare for this.
Get ready for an unprecedented YouTube experience. Introducing the Bigfoot Roundtable, the groundbreaking talk show featuring a 4-person Bigfoot Roundtable discussion. Join our panel of renowned Bigfoot researchers, enthusiasts, and eyewitnesses as they unravel the mysteries surrounding the legendary creature. Hear captivating stories, witness compelling evidence, and engage in heated debates. From sightings to scientific analysis, the Bigfoot Roundtable explores it all. Tune in for an adventure-packed journey into the unknown. Don't miss a moment of the excitement, exclusively on your screens soon. Prepare to believe. The Bigfoot Roundtable, coming soon to captivate and astound audiences everywhere, on YouTube and Rumble. Subscribe and ring the bell for notifications when episodes drop.
All right. That's right after this.
Right after this.
That looks like so much fun.
Oh, it's going to be fantastic. And I just want to say that Joe Pass, our very favorite Squatching Cowboy, I think he would have to, I don't know who gives a better hug, Joe or Mark Marcel.
I don't know.
But get my hug from Squatching Cowboy was the highlight of my December.
Yeah.
Who is the sexy voice? You know what?
That sexy voice in that commercial
is AI.
Is AI.
Don't tell
But
me.
it is a sexy voice though, isn't it, Janice? Anyway, so that is coming up in about 14 minutes.
Yeah, my new editing program has AI voiceovers if I want to use them. So,
and yours is getting old and crackly these days.
I know. Yeah.
It's just
All right.
seasoned. It's just getting broken in. That's all it is.
There you
Yeah.
go. All right. So you got 3 minutes to tie this up.
All right. Any questions? Throw them in the chat really quick. And I think we've talked about where they can find you already. That's
Yes.
usually my last question.
He's also on Instagram for all of you inner teenagers who insist on using. Well, actually, teenagers don't use Insta. If you are like in your 30s and 40s, you're on Insta. If you're old like us, you're on Facebook.
We do have a Facebook fans group on Facebook. You can join
Yes.
that Sasquatch Odyssey fans group. We'd love to have you there. There's a little over 4,000 members in that. And we do have a TikTok. If you're into the TikTok thing, we have a TikTok at Sasquatch Odyssey. And of course on Insta. Yeah, it's a good place to find us. Mike Freeman says, yep, that was in Caldwell. Mike was actually at the table with Cliff and I, and we were all talking about the footprint that I found and did not cast.
It's like the fish that got away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was probably would have turned. Well, I've had a couple that turned out really, really good just over the summer. I actually put pictures of those in the book. I haven't put those pictures out. The only place they're going to be is in the book. So
that's awesome.
It comes out.
All right. Well, I'm not seeing any questions, and so I think it's time.
Okay.
Because people are going to be knocking on the studio door here any minute. So it's true. Thank you so much for joining us, Brian. I'm sorry that this was our night to premiere the new show, but there it is, what it is. And so remember, folks, that our job is to investigate the unexplained,
not to explain the uninvestigated.
So until next week, when you come back here at the same bat time, same bat channel, you keep watching
and we'll keep squatching.
Bye.
Go out and find Bigfoot. And I got to press the button. I'm in the wrong place.
That damn Sasquatch.